Of recent layoffs at CCRI and Rhode Island College, they are only one sign of a college funding crisis in Rhode Island.
NBC 10's Tamara Sakarzik now took a deep dive into the numbers and found the financial woes that started well before this pandemic.
Public colleges primarily rely on two funding sources, the state budget and tuition. With Rhode Island now facing its worst budget deficit in history, our public colleges are really scrambling for a solution.
We've already had layoffs. We've already had to reorganize ourselves a little bit. That will continue to happen.
Fear and uncertainty as the coronavirus pandemic spurs dramatic deficits in higher education funding. The chair of the Council of Post-Secondary Education leaving all options on the table.
Each year there is a slight increase in tuition, generally staying with the economy. But if the federal relief package doesn't come, I'm not quite sure what the tuition will look like, but I do know the overall budget's going to be devastated.
While the pandemic is to blame for Rhode Island's $900 million deficit, I learned state higher education funding started dropping well before the coronavirus started spreading. Back in 2016, Rhode Island was one of 4 states to allocate less than 3% of total tax revenue to higher education.
There's no question if you go back 10 or 15 years or more, that state appropriation was higher than it is today. And so students and their families, are absorbing a greater cost than years ago.
In fact, URI Provost Don DeHay says they got over $5 million more in state funding in 2007 than they did this year. The state, it sounds like, used to really invest a lot of money into public institutions. Why do you think that has changed over the years?
We're a small state. We don't have an enormous population base. And I think there's also the opportunity for the university to generate revenue through tuition.
According to the Budget Policy Institute, state spending per student dropped by nearly 12% between 2008 and 2018. Numbers from the past 3 years show that Governor Raimondo has invested in higher education since then, but funding has never fully recovered from the recession, forcing students to make up the difference.
Public schools in Rhode Island have become very tuition dependent because state aid is always a challenge.
The impact spelled out in this image from CCRI, which shows tuition and fees rising faster than state funding in recent years. Now with declining enrollment, stagnant state funding, and coronavirus spending, Del Judas worries matters will only get worse.
If we don't get that relief package, we're going to have to tighten our belts some more.
If schools are forced to raise tuition, DeHayes told us URI offers significant financial aid for low-income students. Students can also apply for financial aid through the federal government. We have more information on that at turnto10.com. In the studio, Tamara Sakarzik, NBC 10 News.